L. Ron Howard wanted to start a cult.
L. Ron Hubbard.
That's 100% L. Ron Howard.
It's 100% L. Ron Hubbard.
It's 100% L. Ron Howard. 100%. What you gotta do is break him down. You gotta L. Ron Howard him.
That's not a thing. So much about Scientology except the guy's name. That's the easiest part of it. What was it? Would he invent Scientology like after he directed Backdraft in Apollo 13?
No, that was Ron Howard. I'm talking about L. Ron Howard.
Oh my God.
Guys, can we please stop?
Oh, that's funny.
That's funny. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Hey guys, how you doing? Happy Sunday morning.
Hey, happy Sunday morning. I had to find a quiet place. Yeah, I had to find a quiet place because I brought the kids to Hershey Park, and you'd think that. I mean, there's a lot of music and stuff playing, so I found a quiet place that I can hang out, and we're not going to have that to worry about. But yeah, this is cool. Kind of on location.
Family. You'll probably get some giant family come sit next to you in a second. You'll have to move.
Yeah. I tried to find like a local Scientology organization, but there's barely anything in the entire state of Pennsylvania or anything. I know, right? So I'm just going to have to do this instead. So
don't protest, Hershey Park. Wasn't there a reference from L. Ron about the Hershey's company or chocolate company when he was talking about work orientation or something like that?
There probably was. And I can tell you, I have some friends because Hershey's like the biggest empire around this area where I live. Right. We live, I don't know, about 40 minutes from it. And it is just a massive industry. And everyone that works there, they love it. Like the entire town is like, people call it Hershey, Pennsylvania, but the local town isn't actually named Hershey, but they call everything Hershey. But everyone loves working there. But I know, Hubbard talked a bunch of crap about how because Hershey treated his employees good, they revolted against him. I think is what they're like some crap like that. Remember?
Yeah, now I remember.
Yeah. Milton Hershey of chocolate bar fame, I think is how he mentioned it in the policy. Yeah. So the point being for Hubbard.
Yeah, he said they're all worker oriented.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, meanwhile, just the international chocolate production thing, everyone knows Hershey chocolate, but obviously they don't know how to manage themselves because they're expanding and Scientology isn't. So there's that.
That's because they actually offer a real product that tastes great.
It tastes great.
It's surprising how you can expand when you actually give something that has value.
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather have diabetes than Scientology. Anyway.
Guys, I don't know if everyone knows the history here, but I knew Jenni before I knew Mike, but I've known Jenni forever, and we have a long history together. I also worked with her brother at Gold for a long time, so I was really happy to get back on here when you guys when we started speaking behind the scenes to do something. I was kind of excited about it because obviously you guys know I watch your content, and your interview with Jorge was fantastic. Another person I would like to get on with. I only knew him briefly, and I knew his brother Felipe much better because we were closer in age. But even Jorge talking about being the CO Cadets was interesting. That would be a fun conversation to have. He mentioned that I was a rebel and that I left, and I almost forgot about the fact that my mom took me out of the cadet org because I just couldn't handle the authoritarian rule, and I just wanted to be my own self. And that's when I actually played Little League Baseball and just went on my own and did my own thing. Went to public school, came home at the end of the day, did my own thing. I was living a normal life for about 2 years. But that'll be another subject to go into very interestingly. But
You escaped the old Lord of the Flies situation.
For a little bit. I do
remember
the missions, though. I do remember going in the missions, and I would go collect the money sometimes for Treasury. And that was brutal. But I'm sure the adults didn't like being bossed around either by a kid.
So you were a cadet reg or a fundraiser for the cadet org?
Exactly.
No, like Treasury. A little different because it's collections.
There's a famous 80 movies with John Cusack, Better Off Dead. Where's my $2?
Right.
It's like Sterling the debt collector.
By the way, I saw there was a question in the chat about what movie the image of Mike in the thumbnail looks like. And so I will show that momentarily, but we're just going to get chatting here, and then we'll come back to that because he definitely looks like a character from a movie, and I figured out who it is, and I will show that later.
That was a pretty goofy thumbnail. I mean, Sterling there with his pet chicken, and me acting like a complete cheese, and Jenni in costume for some strange reason. I think there's some stories there or something. I don't know.
Oh, there's a for sure story. We actually agreed behind the scenes that Jenni would have to tell her whole story, and then we would opt in or out to tell our part after she's done all the damage in the beginning.
Oh, I see.
Looked incriminating.
Throwing me in.
Under the bus.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Throw me to the wolves, why don't you?
we didn't have a very specific topic other than we were going to talk about, I think, the cadet org and growing up there. You know what's so funny, Mike? I got to tell you, I don't remember ever interacting with you at the cadet org. I just remember our bicycle incident, which we've covered.
Yes,
before.
I mean, mainly I would hang out with Justin, he who should not be named, so Justin and I were like, besties running around doing stuff. Yeah. And then by association, I would sometimes come over to your apartment every once in a while, and we would hang out, mainly just with Justin. I remember there was that one incident. Remember when you were telling me, it's when you guys stayed, just down for the complex. You had your little dog, the little Shih Tzu named Fast, I think.
Yes, yes.
And Justin came up with a revolutionary way to save time while going to the toilet. Do you remember that?
Yes. Actually, but to be completely factual, he came up with that when we were in Florida at 4 or 5 years old. I just repeated the story consistently for the past 47 years just to make sure everyone knows. But yes, the reverse underwear.
Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, you're going to be better at telling it. You're going to be much better at telling it.
Okay, well, anyway, so I come over, and of course Sterling is always digging on his brother. I swear Justin does actually exist. But he starts telling me the story that Justin had figured out a way to economize on time by coming up with a solution on how to go number 2 without having to fully undress. So if we remember, like little boys' Hanes underwear, they had the little double layered hole in the front where you could kind of work things out without having to fully, if you just were doing number 1. Well, Justin's plan was to wear them backwards and try to use that for number 2. And I'm guessing it didn't work as planned. Anyway, a good idea. I think probably needed a little bit more planning, maybe some engineering in order to actually get a good execution on that. Anyway.
Right. Well, and I have tons of Justin stories, to be completely fair, but and I kind of tease them out just because it's fun. It's fun to do that since he doesn't have a voice yet here, and I can probably get away with it for a certain amount of time. But yeah, even Justin with his, it's interesting because we all have our different paths, and the thing that made us leave, or that line that was crossed that finally pushed us to go, hey, we're out, we're gone, we're done. Justin really never wanted to be there. I don't know if you remember that, Mike. He really didn't. Yeah, he just didn't want to be there. I thought, hey, I could exist. I just want to do my job, work as hard as I can, and be successful. So it didn't matter what I was doing. I wanted to be successful at it. But Justin just didn't want to be there. He really was more of a free soul and just wanted to get out. But the one thing that did entice him about Scientology was the promise of these so-called superpowers. And so Justin would, from time to time as a child, sit in a bath for 2 to 3 hours and try to move his shampoo bottles using his mind. My phone's going to ring any moment here. He's going to be so pissed.
Go put up.
I never did that. I thought I could wield a lightsaber like a master, but I never. And I did try to every once in a while choke out my teacher. Just like, and if we had gotten that power, I would have been good. I would have stayed, but no, that didn't happen. So, but yes.
So he tries to move shampoo bottles, and Sterling goes and pisses in them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa,
Yeah.
Whoa,
okay.
Whoa. Mm-hmm. I've not told that story yet. I don't think I have.
I probably showered with it, by the way.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. They say that urine's actually really good for your hair. Okay. Calluses on your hand. I always mix it up. I can't get it right. But anyways, obviously an hour, however long it's going to be, is never going to be long enough for us to talk. But and we've also shared a bunch of horrible experiences together, and I think we've individually covered those in a lot of different videos. But what's interesting is that and I have to say this about me, my personal experience. like Jenni, when you first reached out, or Mike, when I first found out you were out, the amount of feelings that were backed up that come out when I know that you guys are available to talk to, because you do realize when you leave Scientology, you lose all your friends, the people you grew up with and had the most memories with, and most important parts of your life that make you who you are today. You lose all those when you leave Scientology. And it's one of the insidious, nasty things that they do. And they know that they do that. So there's always a complete joy when I find that friends that I know for a long time are out, and now you can converse, even if it's not in person, that you can talk and you can share stories. Because again, there's so many horrible things, but there's also the camaraderie and the parts that we built together trying to survive in that harsh environment. And I don't ever want to compare it to war, Mike, because I know it's not the same, but it's in the same vein as we were in the battle together to just try to survive in a horrible cult. So again,
I agree with that. Like, though, everyone's like individual experiences, like if you're in the military or whatever, those are their own things. But the camaraderie that I've experienced with people that I'm close to in the military, the thriving metropolis of Hershey has a cocoa delivery occurring right now by train, so it's noisy out there. I apologize, but the people that I've deployed with, no matter how long time passes, when we then are able to talk on the phone or see each other, it's like it was just yesterday. We pick up right where we left off, and that's how it is, I think, with a lot of us that are leaving or have left this cult. Is we have had kind of trauma bonded in that similar way, where we're able to kind of pick up, and have, even if we had our differences and, we weren't necessarily even close, or even if we didn't like each other, maybe when we were there, we're able to connect on a way that's probably very, very personal, that you can't with just normal people out in the world, unless you've been through something significant, I think. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. What do you think about that, Jenni?
That makes sense. I agree. I think that's correct. Like once you've gone through something that could be very, very extreme, very hard, very difficult, and you've done it with other people, you have that share. There's so much shared like trials and emotions and fights and wins and losses. Like there's a lot of that you share with only those people who are there with you, who went through it with you.
Absolutely. Another part of what, you really got to give a little credit to Aaron for kind of getting the whole YouTube thing rolling. And it has almost been, besides the therapeutic value to talking about it, to talking to other survivors, the reconnection factor of it, I think, is very important. And again, that's something that as I get older, I appreciate, because I really did think when I left, the biggest thing that hurt was I lost my parents and I lost my friends. Yeah. And even though I was lucky to have Justin out here when I left, and then Jenna was lucky to have her parents, and then Nathan was lucky in some ways. I wouldn't say always lucky to have me, but he at least had that next family member. And I know some people come out and don't have that at all, and that's got to be tough. Jenni, I know that you're dealing with some of that in your life. I think you're the only one in your family that's out at this particular moment, but is that right, Jenni? I think so.
Yeah, I am. I'm the only one that's out. And we're in that period right now, obviously, because it's recent that I've been talking. And so we're having some rough bumps right now. We're in the throes of that.
And that I'm always behind the scenes. I'm always there on the phone whenever you call me to talk about that. And we have discussed some of it. But because I understand it, because I went through that same thing. Funny enough, with particular members of my family, where the control, the coercion, and it's funny because you look at it now, and some of the things that our parents or other people say to us that are trying to convince us to go back or to not speak out about Scientology. It's so insane, the logic they try to use to approach that. Yeah. It's like we're not dumb children. Like, we can think for ourselves. You realize what you're saying is absurd. Scientology is a cult. It does damage people. It does hurt people. And Dave Miscavige is a tyrant. There's no question about it. But hey, they're in a
it's also hurtful that you're sharing these moments of extreme like pain and like horrible experiences and things that were really, really like have weighed on us since probably those times, since we were little children. And we've never been allowed to speak about them. If we ever did, we'd get nailed then for that too. And it's just like there's so much trauma and upset and everything. And the minute you start saying something to try and, maybe even from an external pressure, get that to stop in that organization, or even just to free yourself of the burden of carrying all that. And the most important thing to them is that you shut up. It's really heartbreaking and it's really hard. But at the same time, like I love my parents in a certain way, and I'm very upset with them in other ways, but to have them only, their focus is not on me getting better and me feeling better. It's on me shutting up. And it's just, it sucks.
Yeah. And it comes from a place where it feels like there's no love or empathy for you as a child. It's a very rote, mechanical sort of approach. Like when I was talking to my parents about it, it was very cold and calculated. There didn't seem like there was any love or empathy.
My mom,
Barbara, did try. You could tell she tried because she's got a good heart, but she tried within the constraints of Scientology. And as we know, Scientology, empathy isn't a giant thing.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah. I totally get
got
it.
that.
You should move on now. Do something else. I know you lost everything, all your friends, your family, your life.
This week I took Rosemary to an appointment and we talked about this exact thing. Because, Jenny and I, we had mentioned, where you were getting guilted, like in conversations. And I wanted to understand it from her perspective, from your father, where he's saying like, look what you're doing to me. Look what this effect is having on me. This is hard on your family. What about, it's all this effort to guilt you on the way that you feel. And I asked her about that because I experienced the same thing. And she said, oh, that is true. There's two factors that go into it. One, they are still very conditioned and brainwashed or indoctrinated, whichever approach you want to use on that wording, to believing what they believe. And the majority of the time when they're on the phone with you, someone is sitting over them, writing out what they're supposed to say and telling them, you will respond in this way. You will say these things. You will handle her or him in this way. So it's not like that it is just them. It's the organization that's running that conversation. When you're getting a phone call and they've called you or scheduled something, they're not alone. They're being told what to do, or at a minimum, they are saying you will say and do these things, and this is the result you'll get, or else for you. So there's all of this things that are, it's not just the interaction between us and our family members. You're really interacting with the organization more than you're even reacting or interacting with the family itself. Because if that was just the case, you'd be able to talk through it. You'd be able to disagree. They would be able to disagree. You could come to a point of mutual, understanding or agree to disagree or whatever, and then be able to move past it. But the organization is the problem and the thing that is actually keeping all that in place. So
absolutely.
Yeah, like it's like exactly like what you're saying, Mike. In the real world, you talk it out, you can agree on certain things, agree to disagree on other things, but then you just move on and maybe you don't discuss this particular topic, but you still have a relationship or whatever. But there it's like it's one way or no way.
And it's conditional.
And sucks.
It's always conditional. It's like, you want to be connected to your, Mike, how happy I am for you having Rosemary. And I know there's a burden that comes with that, but at the same time, that makes me so happy that it's unconditional, because it's just a fact. You cannot have a relationship with your parents if they're still in Scientology. It's always going to be on their terms. And when they were telling me, hey, you can't speak to Mark Headley, you can't speak to these people, I'm like, I'm a grown ass adult. Like, I am not a member of your church. I'm your son, and we can have that relationship, but I don't follow the rules of the organization I left. They couldn't understand that concept. I don't know why they thought I needed to behold myself to Scientology for eternity, despite the billionaire contract. I don't understand why they thought that. I actually got Barbara, by the way, to admit that Tom Cruise was an idiot for jumping on the couch. Foster would not but he still thought Tom Cruise was the bee's knees. But I got Barbara to admit, yeah, that was pretty stupid, which I was like, win, yes. Anyways. Jenny, did you know my mom, Barbara, or no? I'm wondering.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember her from AO. And then then she was gone for a little bit because she was up lines. But then I do remember when she came back down and she was in pack and stuff. And then and of course your dad was there and he worked in the mill. And so he knew that you and I knew each other and stuff. So I used to chat with him all the time. And honestly, outside of the Scientology thing, your dad's actually a super, super nice guy, real smart, very fun to talk to, gets excited about the little things he's doing and stuff. And
he can make washing a dish exciting.
Absolutely. And do you remember some of the protests recently? They had this like old guy out power washing on L. Ron Hubbard Way when some of the protesters were there. Anyway, he was out. Anyway. So when they have people come out, this is one thing that Scientology just doesn't get. And this is probably their biggest area of future problems or legal problems, or just the actual problem with the people themselves, is the Sea organization, as we've talked about before, is either extremely young or extremely old. They're missing that whole demographic in the middle of like the middle-aged people that would be there forever. But they're working their people until they're in their 80s. 90s, or whenever they die, they'll literally work them until they die. They had this old guy out power washing to make noise when the protesters were there. The guy's 80 years old. He's been like, that guy was there. His name is Hank. He was there when my mother joined the Sea organization like 36 years ago.
Hank.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that old dude, he was in PBC. He's like the fire IC, or
Yes.
he's in charge of something in the main building. They had him out there pressure washing. Now just think about that. They don't get that a guy in his 80s shouldn't be doing manual labor like that. I mean, some people do it. He's not power washing his personal house. He's power washing a commercial location. Like he's working, and it could have been on the weekend. I don't know what day it was exactly, but he's out there doing that just to make noise. When Rosemary looked at that, she's like, oh my God, this makes no sense. I know who that guy is, but they don't even see it as a problem. But like our parents and a lot of other people adjacent to our parents, they are aging and they are going to reach like old people problems where they're going to have physical ailments. They're going to have dementia. They're going to have whatever. And there is no system in place other than to kind of stuff them in a house and have them like write letters and do all this sort of stuff to take care of them properly. I've talked to Catherine Spallino about it. We were trying to help her at one point with the situation with her parents, and it's an ongoing problem. And I know Sterling, you're very aware of this with Foster and Barbara in that situation. But I mean, between the teenagers that are probably still there or being recruited in there, and the old people, these are issues that protesters need to be like, take care of your old people. Get kids out of this situation. These are good conversations to have. These are, because most of those people, success for them is work until you die. Like if I die, like come home from work, die that night, that's going to be what I would call good, because I'm not a burden on the organization. And that's the mindset of a lot of these people, which is really, really jacked up.
I mean, they will literally get you until you can. They'll be like, okay, you can no longer walk. A doctor has officially declared that standing up or walking is bad for you. Sit down. We'll find something to do. Like that. That's their mindset. It's they're going to use every part of you until you can't anymore, and then go to the next thing. And they're not going to try to fix it. They're not going to. Well, they will spend no money on medical care for their staff members. And I know
that indoctrination starts early though, too, Sterling. And Mike, if you think about it, look, when we were there and we were young, we're already like grooved in and groomed to the idea that if you're not literally like contagious, it doesn't matter how bad you feel, your ass is in that chair working.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was in a car accident one time and I had like a huge bump and split on my head, and then I had my whole arm was broken, my finger, everything in here was like busted up and everything. And I mean, I was on post the next day, and you don't get to take ibuprofen. You don't get to take painkillers. You don't get to take nothing. You just show up. If you're sick as a dog, as long as you don't have that fever that's contagious, you're in there. So
absolutely,
you get groomed to that early. So by the time you're old, you already have that mindset, like exactly that example you gave. If you can work and then go home and, die or whatever, then you've done well.
Yeah. And then you begin to think, the minimal time that you get off, you begin to value that and think that, okay, you're still okay. You're getting CSP on the morning. The CSP is a term for the clean staff project. It's really just time to clean your room and do your laundry on Sunday morning. But you begin to dwindle down for lack of a better word, the things that you can have and do, you never realize until you leave how nice it is to have your evenings, to have your weekends, to be able to participate in activities, to go hunting, to fly helicopters on icebergs, to pet chickens. There's just a million things you can do.
The chickens, yeah.
And you don't know that you've lost that portion of happiness that you can absolutely have outside. And it's funny because they promise you happiness inside Scientology. And now Scientology, again, let's differentiate. Scientology and Sea Org are not exactly the same thing. We are talking about the Sea organization where you're a dedicated staff member and you work for them 24/7. But man, there's so much more to be happy about than that.
Production is the basis of morale, right, Sterling?
Right.
It has nothing to do with actual like interaction and happiness and, you know, people being connected to people. You produce. Remember what the definition of play was that they would tell us? They make us Chinese school all this crap. Play is work without a purpose. That is what Scientology says play is. Work without a purpose.
Oh, interesting.
You know, production is the basis of morale. Work without a purpose is play. It's all so if you have individual aspirations, sorry, I'm getting attacked by mosquitoes, so I'm putting on some stuff because I have anyway, totally wimp skin. You guys are like, you tan and you have wimp skin too,
No.
Jenny?
If there's 100 people and one mosquito, I'm gonna get bit 100 times.
Okay, yeah, that's me.
I was
There's
out
one
doing
just
something. I got
me anyway.
40 bug bites last weekend. 40.
I'm going camping with you two because then I won't get any bites. This will be awesome.
Anyway,
I forgot about that, Mike. I mean, at a certain point, again, I stopped Chinese schooling and I just murmured and just made sure no one was paying
you say
attention
watermelon
to
all the time. Watermelon.
Yeah, that's something we have to talk about too. Like at a certain point, I mean, I got a lot of auditing as a child, and it was very innocuous. It was simple stuff that I have no trauma from it. The trauma for me was the sec checking, the interrogations. That was like, oh my God, in your face.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, like the auditing itself isn't as. I think children auditing is going to open the door to a lot of crazy because every time you have to do rudiments and ask for overts, it always turns into some sort of sex thing. But the auditing itself is not nearly as bad. The sec checking is absolutely 100% horrible. But weren't you clear as a kid? Because you wore that clear bracelet, right?
Yeah. And you guys should have slapped me every time you saw me wearing that. Thank you for that. Dick.
I know, right? And he calls me high and mighty because I had a swimming pool at my apartment.
She did, by the way. She was one of the rich kids. Like you remember my apartment. I lived in the kitchen. I slept in the kitchen of my apartment.
So did I.
You guys had a kitchen?
On a mattress. On the floor.
Wait, you guys had a kitchen? Oh, I had a TV too. But my apartment was so old. We had an old, I forget what they're called, but it's like a furnace. Anyways, the place was so old. It was built in the 1920s and never been renovated. It was ridiculous. It was such a piece of crap. Anyways, you guys totally sidetracked me. I forgot where I was going with this.
your douchey clear bracelet.
Oh yeah. So my mom was the senior CS at AOLA. My aunt Griffey, bless her soul, was the internship soup. So students that were learning some of the processes would I got a lot of auditing as a child because of that. Never forced on me, obviously. My mom always asked, "Do you want to do it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, try it." Oh, look at that. Is those chickens?
Those are geese and baby geese.
Geese.
They're coming to see if I have like stuff to. I think they're going to try to
getting
attack
hungry.
me.
I can tell.
Sterling's
these things are just
wanting to
by.
go give them hugs.
I do want to give them hugs. Oh my God. I don't know. I love birds. Birds.
Sorry,
anyway,
go ahead.
So,
you were saying,
and not to anger anyone, but we all have our different experiences. So, as a kid, for whatever reason, I never had the roots flown as a kid, and that's probably, maybe because it was insignificant to me. It didn't mean anything to me. There was never anything inappropriate auditing up to the age of 10. Then I stopped auditing though for all the way up until I was like 19 years old when I started getting sec checking. Because somehow, and you, Mike, you'll appreciate this, Jenny, you'll appreciate this. I made it all the way to int base without getting a single sec check question asked of me ever. Like, every time there was some rule change, I slipped in, and then I slipped in again, and then they changed the rules after, and everyone had to get a sec check. So I never even got sec checked, interrogated until I was 19, which is actually unbelievable. And Justin was the same way, though. Funny enough, Justin didn't get an interrogation until he was like 18 or something like that. And I think it had to do with moving people around and okay, well, your parents are already up here, but that being said, one or two people had the same thing, but then the rules changed as everything got tighter and more restricted. But no, so yeah, I did get a lot of outings as a kid. I walked around with a clear brace. It was so funny is I still completely had a temper issue and would get very upset very easily. But hey, it looked cool.
Seen that.
Yeah, like you were telling me yesterday, you were yelling at the ump at the Little League game. And I was like, it just sounds like when we were kids. I mean, come on now.
To be clear, guys, I am solidly against yelling at children in a baseball game for anything. And all the other managers in our league tend to yell a little bit at the kids. Like, hey, I won't do it. I don't think this is a learning age for them, 10 to 12. But the umpire has it out for me. And I went out to go help a kid because I'm a coach with his batting stance. And he was like, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And then I just turned to him and said, what's the rule? Like, tell me the rule. Otherwise, you're just being prejudiced. And someone later on, the league president told me, you were pretty harsh out there. But I have everything recorded in 4K video because I GoPro every game. And no, I played it back. I'm like, dude, no, I'm sorry. I asked the question pretty simply. No one's ever stood up to the umpire. I have. I said, what's the rule? Because you're just telling me I can't do something. But my job's to coach the kids. So unless you've got a rule, and what's funny though, for lack of a better word, it triggered me a little bit, Mike. Jenny, it did. It was this authoritarian because the umpire shouldn't be questioned. He's the master of his domain, and he is able to have biases without any consequences. And I have an issue with that. And I noticed the rest of the day I was out of place and angry about it. I had to think about it. I had to call a few friends to talk about it. That behavior is so much of what Scientology and Sirius was like. It still angers me when it happens. And I have to remember that if I just breathe and I just calm down and I just stay in a very easygoing tone, I can resolve it very quickly and not let it bug me as much. But it does. It absolutely does bug me. And it will take me a day to get over even a small thing like that.
I have the same issue.
Yeah. Yeah. When things get real super drama, especially when they're over like petty, stupid things, I'm like, I will almost sit there and stare like I'm there, but I have mentally checked out. I'm not listening anymore. I'm like gone. And then, someone will be like, so what do you think of this or that? I'm like, you're going to have to run that by me again. And then I'll check right out if they don't change their tone. I do it all the time. It's terrible. It's like, I don't know, maybe a coping mechanism. I can't control it.
It's interesting because we don't really know the depth sometimes of what it is. We put ourselves or try to put ourselves in a safe environment and do those things that we love to do, but we have to work. And I'm actually lucky because at work, the two people I work for are amazing. Like I think it's just, I worked for a tyrant my entire life. And whoever, God, the universe, whoever it may have been, put me in the life of these two people, and they are just the most pleasant people in the world. And I'm lucky that way, but there's other things that can trigger sort of things. And it's just interesting. It's, we don't really know the depth of it. And sometimes we got to look back and go, and I'm always self-correcting. I always like to go, what did I, not overly like Scientology, but what did I do to cause that? Obviously at some point the umpire probably said something to me and I gave him the same face I gave Dave Miscavige, which is this one.
Well, you mentioned the auditing and how it wasn't traumatic for you. That's an interesting benchmark to say it wasn't traumatic for me. So I will. That is, that's the measure of good that we have to apply to Scientology's.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Hey, I didn't get traumatized by this thing. Like, oh, gosh, thank goodness. Now I've had therapy and I've had couples therapy. And it is so drastically different than Scientology's auditing because you will sit down with this therapist and they want to hear what you have to say about what you're having problems with. You'll come in with an issue. Their point is to get you to talk, but they'll ask questions of what you say. They'll challenge you on what you'll say. They'll disagree with you. And then they'll like, if you start just running off, and that doesn't happen in auditing, like unless you're not answering the question, then they'll get you back onto it. But there's no interaction, there's no analysis, there's nothing like that. And then when that happens, like in actual therapy, they're trying to get to the root issue about what you're coming in with. In Scientology, you're following this kind of pre-established steps that every single person, it's one size fits all, is the way Scientology works, except when it comes to the security checking, which they'll make tailor-made lists to try to just mess with you more. But
there's no real
Yeah.
nuance. Let me be clear. You're so right. When I just described that to you, there's not a lot of trauma, but I could not tell you one thing it helped me with. I could not say that I'm better because of any Scientology auditing I got, not even in a little bit. And I did get therapy when I left, and there isn't, it should not even be used in the same sentence. In therapy, you go back and you analyze, you look at it, you naturally get to the point of, hey, maybe I did something there, maybe this. Scientology throws that down your throat. Oh, you must have done something, which is not always the case. And again, like you say, Mike, it's not nuanced. Scientology is not nuanced at all. If it's not written in a checklist somewhere by L. Ron Hubbard, you must follow that path. Somewhere you have to get to the next checklist or the next policy letter. Whereas in actual therapy, that person, well, one cares a lot about you. And I wouldn't say that the auditor doesn't care about you in Scientology, because some of the auditors did really care about people, but they're restricted again by having to follow the abusive policies of L. Ron Hubbard. In my opinion, and it may differ from other people, L. Ron Hubbard creating Scientology solely to make money. That's what he was doing. He just wanted to make money. He wrote a lot about it. He just wanted to make money and get as many people in as possible. And he knew that he could control people as they moved further up the bridge, lock them more in. And then, as we know, disconnection, family, it's a whole setup. The whole thing is a setup. But yeah, I don't disagree with you at all, Mike. It shouldn't be used in the same sentence. Scientology auditing holds nothing to actual therapy. Agreed.
Yeah. I didn't do a ton of auditing. I mean, I have probably 20 some odd PT folders, but they're pretty much sex checks. NOW write-ups.
What bad crap is Jenny up to now?
I would get like metered interviews, sex checks, and NOW write-ups for like everything. Everything. And I mean, I think I've told this story before, but like, I tell you, I was in for, I think a sex check of some kind, and whatever they're seeing, like, first of all, they make you put on that standard hand cream, which I think right away gives me like a dirty needle, because I can't, it's so gross and it's cakey and sticky and yucky. And I'm like a little OCD, so I can't handle that stuff on my hands. But then I'm in session, and whatever they're seeing, they think that I've done something terrible. And so somewhere in there, for some reason, they asked me if I like essayed my sister. I was like, excuse me? Or have you lost your marbles? Like, what the fuck? And then, but they kept on it and kept on it. And I was in there and I kept denying it. I'm like, no, I didn't do any such thing. I would never in my life. And they kept on me for 9 hours. I was so angry. I finally got up and threw the fucking cans right past the auditor's head on purpose, so it would be close and whatever. And I said, let me out of the room, because they also wouldn't let me leave. And so I threw the cans and I said, if you don't move away from that door and let me out, I will break my way out. I will throw a chair through the window. I will break the fucking wall, but I'm getting out. And so they moved. They let me out. Eventually, after some time and getting me to eat some dinner and stuff like that, they got me to go back in there and told me it was like a false read, which, is all Scientology crap. But I was just happy to be out of there, made my needle float so I can end. And I was literally crying at the examiner and still got, so of course I got what they call a red tag, which means you have to go right back in. And so, but it went a little easier that next time. But I mean, just to be subjected to something like that was, for me, that's like, that probably still sticks with me. Like, I'm still not over that. The amount of like upset and rage and feeling trapped and being accused like of something that I had never, ever, ever done in my entire life. And in fact, happened to me, it was just like, it was torturous. You know what I mean?
Is that why they were questioning you about it? Because you had gone through a similar thing and they were trying to figure out why you pulled it? Like, you know what I mean?
No.
That weird
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, done something similar. No, because basically the thing that had happened to me until I got out and spoke out, I had actually not spoken of it. It came up one time in a Dianetics session I did, where no, it's not even Dianetics session. It's where they try to do a process Dianetics style. Like they can change certain commands to
Like the
try and make it
doing
relate
net
to an
processing
engram.
on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
in some
I think I
weird
know what you mean.
way. Yeah, and so it was something like that. And it was the first time it came up, and I was crying my eyeballs out. I was mortified. I knew I was going to get sec checked because of it. Everything that's going to come from having something like that happen to you.
Right.
And I look up, and my auditor was like dead asleep.
Oh, that's
and
right.
I
I remember
thought,
you talking about that.
this is incredible. No, I thought it was like a sign from God or something. Like I was like spared. I thought,
Because he missed it.
He didn't get any of it. He was sleeping. And so I just sat quietly until he woke up, and my needle, I guess I thought it was really funny. And so when he opened his eyes, my needle was floating and we got to end. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, were you in one of those look in, listen in rooms though?
It might have been before that those were put in.
Okay, because once those were in, they were recording everything.
Yeah, I don't know. So you know what? That's a fair point because I just don't remember the exact time. It would have been probably right around the time, either right before or just as it was starting to go in.
Yeah, and it would depend.
But the other one that I was in there for 9 hours was definitely a look-in because when I came out, like 3 people came out of the watching room. They were all watching me in there. It was fucking bad.
Oh yeah.
Like not. It wasn't the CS. It was 3 other people watching me. That had nothing to do with me. Yeah, like HCO and CMO.
Jenny, it's interesting you mentioned the thing about the essay with your sister because they pulled the same thing on me with Jenna when I got in trouble, and it just shows you how disgusting they can be, how horrible they can be. Mm-hmm. There's no evidence. I saw in the chat someone asked a question. There's no this happened. This is just them throwing out the dirtiest, nasty stuff.
Murder routine.
To talk. It's horrible. And to hear that, and that's the first time I've heard that from you, Jenny, to hear that happened to you as well. I know that happened to me. I know that actually happened to Jenna as well when she was asked about someone else or she was asked about me. It's so disgusting that question could be asked.
Gross.
Now, mind you, I was 19, but that's still disgusting. If I was 40, that's still disgusting. If I was any age, that is a disgusting question to ask anybody. And it's one of the sickest perversions that Scientology has that kind of goes unacknowledged. It is the worst part. In my mind, in my opinion, because everyone has a different experience, it is the worst part of Scientology is those interrogations and those checks. Because you can walk out of the room. Pretty much anytime you can walk out of the room. But it's the prison of belief. So if they put one guy outside, if you know that you're 4 doors in a building, there's no way you can get through all 4 doors before someone gets you. If you're in a very tiny room and you've got Gerald Duncan sitting on the other side, Jenny, the Department 3 at Gold, the interrogation rooms were tiny. Tiny. Like to get around that table would be almost impossible. Then you'd have to zigzag through 2 or 3 corridors to get out the door.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same. And that like not only do they ask you once, but they go at you and they try to reword it, the same question in like 15 different ways, and that they stay on it for hours and hours because like they just want you to, I don't know, like sometimes I would sit in there if it was some bullshit like crime, they call it, like some petty little stupid, breaking a pencil kind of thing. Yeah, sure. To get out of there, I would go ahead and say I did it. Absolutely. Just be done with it and move on if they weren't going to let off of it. But when it's something that severe, there's absolutely no way that my name is going to be tied to some bullshit I never did. But then they don't let off of it for hours and hours because they want you to confess it. And like you have certain sec checkers too. Not all of them were this way. But you have certain ones that had to be like the hot shot sec checkers, the people who could get anything. And they were tenacious. They would just go at you in every way. And they would do like what they call the murder routine, which is to go way extreme to kind of get you to say what you did. And they would just pound, like they could go for hours with you. And they got like they got like a kick out of it in the sense that they got like credit and they got acknowledgement. They got these accolades for being this like badass sec checker. It's really crappy, you know. Jessica Feshbach was one of those people.
I got to tell you, anyone that was that star sec checker, and they would run through, because as usual in Scientology and the C organization, that star sec checker would then be doing dex work or manual labor a year later because they missed someone's overt acts. But at the time, or when they were training, to me, those were the worst people. I mean, there was a group of people that were always that at Golden Era Productions. They were either in RTC or Golden Era Productions. Laura Dolan was one of them. There's a person, Mike, that you and I had a conversation about, Erin Woodruff. I don't know if you knew.
I remember her as a child.
Well, not Erin Selly, Erin Woodruff.
No, I remember Erin Woodruff too.
So, well, she was training to be one of these super sec checkers, security checkers, interrogators. And I was in the trees department. She would see me walking around and be like, I can't wait to get you on the meter, Sterling. I'd be like, what the fuck's your problem? I don't even know you. Like, what do you have against me? Like, what did I do to you?
Just like out of the blue.
Just out of the blue. Yep. She just had a heart on. I don't know what it was. But she was one of those people that was, again, we've had this talk so many times with different people. It's interesting. You know, you can do a lot of bad things because you're brainwashed in Scientology. It doesn't justify them. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have to answer to them. But then there's people that take it a whole nother level. Your Marty Rathbun's, your Mike Sutter, your Warren McShane's, and notoriously, and the most famous, your Jenni DeVox. And you also had an experience with Jenni DeVox, I believe, down in LA. She's a horrible person. She went out of her way to make you uncomfortable and make sure you felt the pain and the squeeze. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there are definitely people got kick out of that kind of stuff. It's just disgusting. And the thing about it is the people who were like that got recognition.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, yeah, and I think that, you know, like I'm gonna go out on a limb and try to be as charitable as possible, because I also have not great thoughts about some of our contemporaries that found themselves there. A lot of these people were manufactured to be like that. Now, there's probably a disposition thing, like some people are predisposed to maybe being in that way, but it was survival for us. So at a young age, when we were already starved for attention, starved for interaction, starved for recognition, we were undereducated and then indoctrinated to be part of this organization. When you're then given recognition and you're given attention, you're told how great you are, when you're becoming something like that, it's like the Facebook algorithm. It'll make you it'll keep presenting you whatever you're asking for. Well, when you're getting recognition in that way, like, you know, so I think we have a lot of like bad memories with these people. And I was one that, like, for instance, Laura Anderson had a lot of bad memories about me, and we had to talk through that. I think us doing videos like this gives us the opportunity to provide platforms, make it show people that, hey, we can actually have these conversations, especially if they're out. Like, I know Laura Dolan is out now. I think she's working.
Really?
You know, somebody told me she was working at that Superbike place, that Cole guy. What's his name? Keith Cole.
Oh, Cole. Yeah.
Keith Code.
Keith Code.
Yeah. So she's probably still involved with Scientology. She's probably still involved with Scientology if her family is and all that sort of stuff. But I would love to talk to Laura, because I've, like, my worst sec checking experience I had was she was the sec checker for it, but she's not there anymore. So I want, and she was also groomed to be a sec checker because I was in the RTC trainee pool with her from the point that I think she was like 13 or 14, maybe 15 years old. And I think I was like 19 or 20 when we were in that like recruit pool together, being made to be our RTC staff members at some point. And that was created. So Erin Woodruff was probably similar in that way. Now, does she have a disposition to be bitchy? She might, but I'm guessing that isn't the core person. So, like, for instance,
she was actually a very nice girl. When she was like 8, 9 years old, 10, she was actually probably one of the sweeter people.
Right. So I think,
but it is a lot like you say, Mike.
We did bad stuff.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, you, me, and Jorge spoke about this exact point, was especially when you start out as children and stuff, and there you are, you're given this task, and you know, you want to do the best that you can, and you want to receive acknowledgement for it. And then as you go through, the more people are applauding that behavior, I can see the more you lean towards that, because in the Sea Org, you really got to constantly, show up or ship out kind of thing, end up being the toilet cleaner for Asho if you don't whatever.
Now,
So
that shouldn't be to give a pass to these senior executives who are in the positions of power over massive bodies of people who were doing bad crap their entire life. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a child who was turned into something is probably different than a person that was an adult, chose to be there, and just absolutely loved terrorizing people their entire life. That's a different kind of person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Anyway, but I'm not saying like
I think
they could. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think also as you get over, and I'm not trying to cut you off, I'm sorry, but just because it's like direct on topic, because I agree with everything you're saying. There is one little twingy little thing though, as we get older. And I did some things that I was like particularly not proud of, but as I got older, I could feel that emotion that I had done something that upset somebody else. And it was very, very hard for me. And it was like, then I would go out of my way to avoid it in the future. No matter how much trouble I got in, I would rather have taken that punishment than to go do it. Like one time, for example, I screamed at I got mad as a kid. We were really under the gun to get some stuff done. And he assured me over and over that it was under control. I wouldn't have to worry about it. Came to the end of the night where it was like, we were all about to go, do our punishments, rocks and shoals, they call them. And I went and checked. I said, okay, is it done? Are we good? And he's like, no. And I literally, because it's a Scientology thing, I said flunk, but I said it really loud and angrily because I was so mad because I knew we were about to go spend probably 2 or 3 hours scrubbing rust off metal or whatever they wanted us to do that day. And I could see it in his face, just how crushed that was. It was a simple statement. I yelled, we all yell in life, but still I could see how much it hurt him. I'll tell you what, outside of the course room, I never said that word again to anybody. I couldn't do it. And I feel like, no matter what posts we had, and I got in a lot of trouble. That's probably why I have so many folders full of sec checking, because it would hit that point where I could see that I did something bad and it was hurting somebody and it was not good. And I could no longer get myself to do it. And, as a kid, not so much because we were just all over the place all the time.
It's that,
but
it's that point.
I don't think that they should get total free pass. This is what I'm saying.
And here's an interesting subject, which we should maybe get into. And Mike, I agree with what you're saying about the executives and also about, let's say Laura Dolan, let's take her, for example, being a young person groomed and doing that. But I also do believe, and again, with my friends, I can agree to disagree with you guys, and we'll never be angry at each other for it. But in this point, I think, and I agree with Jenny on that, I could never be an auditor or sec checker for 2 reasons. One, I didn't really believe in Scientology after a bit. So I was like, okay, not going to do it. And I could not sit in a room hour after hour handwriting notes while a person talks to me. I couldn't do it. The second thing was that I had a sensitivity the same way that you're talking about, little Jen. This isn't to say I'm a great person. I didn't yell at anyone. Of course I yelled at people. But I had a sensitivity to watching someone in front of me go through painful moments, and I'm inflicting that. I couldn't do that. When I was in the CMO, I may have yelled at 1 or 2 people, but I didn't stop and yell at that person for 5 or 10 minutes until he broke down. I may have raised my voice once or twice, but sitting in front of a person while they cry and you're digging and digging and digging, maybe something that's taught you in Scientology, but I think you have to have a certain personality trait to even entertain that as a job. And I've talked to Justin about this for hours, and we've discussed that. Justin would have never been a guy that could have been a sec checker either, for whatever reason. Maybe his demeanor, maybe whatever it was. He can argue you to death, as you know, Mike. He can also talk your ear off. But I do think there's a particular trait that allows a person to get from basic training of an E-meter to a point where they're selected to be, it's not all built, it's in there somewhere, where they're able to destroy a human in front of them for an hour. Now, maybe they're desensitized by TRs and by previous auditing, but I still think in most cases, it's nuanced, that person that could be the super uber sec checker has got some sort of twist that's inherently built in there. If that makes sense.
I don't disagree. So,
yeah, I agree. I do want to say though, I do believe in apologies and change. I do believe that somebody can reflect back and go,
yes,
boy, I really fucked up. And I am actually sorry I hurt those people. And I won't do that shit again. And by action, not do that shit again. I believe in that kind of change when you can see it. And so I like I say, like I agree with Mike on the recognition, the acknowledgement, the things that encourage it. And I agree with Sterling, because obviously I share the same thing, that you had, there's still a line that you chose to cross at some point when you were hurting people. But that being said, sometimes removing yourself from that situation, getting all the way out, really doing a lot of reflection and looking and changing, I think you can really kind of go, wow, like that was bad. And I did that. And I will not do that anymore. And, so yeah.
So I found myself like so as an RTC trainee, because I'll speak to this, we were being manufactured, and I'm using that like term manufactured. So they took most of us, and most of us weren't trained at all. And I was supposed to be being trained to be an ethics officer, and then I was supposed to be a driver for Dave. And they were kind of using me to do those things. So I was actually working under Marty Rathman to do the ethics officer stuff. And then along with me, we had, Serena Matoya, Naomi, that ended up marrying QC, your brother.
Serena Matoya or Serena McKelvin?
Serena Matoya. And I think we might have had, anyway, we had there were about 6 or 7 young girls that were all like in their late teens, early 20s that were being, Laura Dolan was one of them. And there were several others. And then like myself, Eric Profitlich, Sheldon Hogarth, he came from OSA. He was like an OSA kid. And we were all being made, we were all being made to be ethics officers. And so Marty Rathman was training us to be ethics officers. Meanwhile, you had Pam Ford, I think some of the other RTC senior managers or RTC reps were then training them to be sec checkers. So I saw them go all the way from e-meter drills all the way to being sec checkers, and they were being groomed to do that. So I would say out of those people, the majority of them ended up getting kicked out of that pool because they didn't have the temperament for it, and then they became auditors at Gold, working in the qualifications division auditing staff.
Naomi ended up there.
Yeah, that's where Nomi ended up. That's also where Serena Matoya ended up. And but Chelsea Sala, or Chelsea Graves at the time, and then she was Sala, and then she ended up having to divorce her husband because she went into RTC, and she was then on the Tom Cruise lines and doing that. Laura Dolan was ended up being one of the sec checkers. They either had what it took or they didn't. I don't know if Sheldon Hogarth ended up staying there. Myself and Eric Profitlich, we both ended up getting busted out, and we ended up down in Gold. So we didn't have the temperament to keep doing it, but we were put in the situations where we're being groomed by executives to do these interactions with people that could be the worst time in their career. And that was what we when we roll in, people should be scared, was kind of the mentality.
Yeah.
And most of us didn't have the temperament to do it at a sustained rate, and some did. So there's probably some truth in both directions, but I would love, and I kind of realized this the other day when Jenny was doing the conversation with Amber. So Amber was somebody who has a lot to say. She was there. She has not had a platform or a voice. So all of us getting out here and talking about these things and saying, as we have more conversations, as we have more channels open up, as people are out here talking about it, going out there protesting, doing whatever their flavor is, and doing that, more people are going to come out of the woodwork, and we're going to be able to have more of us doing that. So like the Amber conversation, I would love to have a conversation with Laura Dolan. I know you would too. Now, in order to talk about what she's doing now, but also things back then, I'd love to hear her perspective. I'd love her to hear my perspective, because I had a really nasty sec checks from her. And I would just like to see why is she out now? What is that story? Because there's something there. it ultimately shows that Scientology at its core and what it is both producing internally and externally ends up failing after a short period of time, and their attrition rate is extremely high. I'm interested in more of those conversations coming to fruition.
Right. And of course, I believe in forgiveness, absolutely. Because again, I understand the concept being raised in a cult. I was raised in a cult, and that in a lot of cases, you didn't know a whole lot better. So I do believe if you make the effort to contact the people that you may have harmed and you have that discussion, and of course, you turn over any information that may be pertinent that would help out with Scientology losing its tax-exempt status. But then on the other hand, there's some people I got personal beefs with. If I saw Chris Geider on the street, I might smack him. And Russ Bellin, I owe a very hearty slap in the face. And so if I see them, that would be nice. And, if I saw Dave Miscavige at a movie theater, I would like, have a conversation with him too. And I would walk right up to him and have that conversation. But no, I get what you're saying. And it's what we've been talking now on YouTube. Aaron's been doing it for 6 or 7 years. All of us have been doing it for at least 6 months. It's funny how we can talk about, and depending on the group you get together to talk about it, but we can talk about things and even have more realizations as we discuss them. And I do have a little bit of hatred left in my heart for sect checkers. But when you put it the way you just put it, Mike, there's a part of my heart that can be that can forgive, because I do know that while I may speak pretty confidently on here, I've not sorted out all aspects of Scientology in my own head. I have different opinions than a lot of people on different things, and I may get there and I may not, but I'm okay with those people having their opinions. They must be okay with me having my opinions. It doesn't detract from each other, but there's parts of it that I still am angry about this and not angry about this, and the other person's angry, so these sort of healing conversations with your peers and people and talking about their different experiences, it's invaluable. It also, and it's not directed, it's not targeted. I'm not trying to push a message. It's just a conversation we're having. I think these are some of the best conversations that can be had on here, because for the people watching, I hope you guys are enjoying it. You really get to see an unbiased, unedited version of us in real time talking about our trauma and what we went through and how we see it. And by the end of this conversation, we may see things a little differently because of this conversation.
I agree. I agree. I think the more I've talked about it, like when the first interviews I did with my cousin, and I did it on purpose because he was like a safe place for me. And I was talking about some of the most difficult parts of my childhood with him. Right. And, but even going through that, like my perspective was changing just from doing that. But then when I went over and did the interview with Aaron, where we took broader strokes and we looked kind of a bit more beginning to end, and it goes with each time, but like a lot of things started to change for me in that conversation, just as I was saying things out loud. And then he would question back in a way that was making me look at that same thing from in a different light. And then the more I've done, talking to I talked to you, Mike, off, not on YouTube. And then I talked to my cousin, not on YouTube. And then we talked together on YouTube. And then I talked to people who were raised in completely different cults. And it just helps each time that we do things like this, at least for me, it's like I'm looking at everything from different perspectives and kind of newly looking at, I don't know, it really does help. I think it's kind of therapeutic in its own way. And I think it's very helpful for being able to move through a lot of it. But, some of it probably does require some professional help,
yes.
And guidance. I'm not going to lie. Like I still can't look back at that incident when I'm 7, other than saying it happened. I can't get into it more than that, because after I did that, as much as I did with my cousin, which still wasn't even that much, for 2 weeks, I was just in the darkest place, and it was so hard to get out of. So there's things like that, but then there's things like, a lot of the cadet stuff. Yeah. It's just that a lot of that, just talking about it, I think helps a lot, and looking at it from different angles and we knew things weren't exactly right there, but to hear it from other people going, that's insane. You're like, okay, so I wasn't crazy. It wasn't me, this was crazy stuff. Think about it. We would just take off whenever we wanted and go down to LACC as if that was safe, because a lot of the gangs hang out around there. You know what I mean? And we'd just be like, "Wee, let's get on our roller skates and go." And like me, Carly, and Erica, and I think Micah came with us that one time, and we went down to LICC, and because they had these big steps and stuff, so you can kind of on your roller skates, you can jump and do all that kind of stuff and skate around. We had to climb the fence in our skates to get in there because it was closed that particular time. But the gang, about 5 of them were there, and Carly goes into the bathroom, and their girlfriends are in there. A few of the girlfriends are in there, and Carly starts running her mouth. I wasn't exactly there, so I don't know exactly what she said, but I go in right at the end. As I'm going into the bathroom, Carly's like, "We have to go, like right now," and I was like, "Uh-oh." So I just turn around, I yell at Erica and Micah, and we all start skating. These girls are like hightailing it after us, and their boyfriends start laughing at them. These are the like cello gang members, and they start cracking up because they think this whole interaction's funny. But we are literally like 10 or 11 years old, and
trying to run away.
Yeah, and the girls get pissed, and they go turn to their boyfriends like they're like, "Help us!" And so the guys all get up and come running at us, and we're climbing the fence in our roller skates.
Oh my
and
God!
These fuckers are like grabbing our legs, trying to pull us back down. Like they don't even care that we're little girls. Anyways, we finally got over the fence and took off, but.
Can I give you a piece of advice
no
on that
one
one,
wondered
Jenni?
where we were.
Yeah.
What?
Jenni, here's what you do next time. This is from Justin's playbook. You get caught while the girls escape, and then you tell the people that caught you that one of your girlfriends has a better pair of skates that are more valuable than yours. They'll leave you, and they'll go after the other person.
True story. Yeah.
I feel like roller skates are not in the same category as a bike.
That's true. That's actually true.
I could have said one of them had a car.
Bashes on Justin. We're at 3. Sorry. I know I don't want to make
Sasquatch.
Again, Mike and I went through the same thing. It's pretty horrific. Yeah. We grew up in a terrible neighborhood. But we just wander around like it's nothing. I know. We went to Griffith. I used to pick up trash in Griffith Park right next to one of the worst public bathrooms that you could possibly be in. I'm like, why are you guys having... Now I go, why the hell were you bringing us up to Griffith Park to pick up trash every day? Like, it's the stupidest thing. When I was in a Mace Kingsley rehabilitation unit, that's what
Mace Kingsley had a rehabilitation unit?
Oh, I think I was the founding member. They had my picture up on the wall. Yeah, I think I was the founding member of that. I fought with my teachers. I always was. Yeah, anyways, yeah.
Before they made the ramp.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Oh, Sterling went to Mace Kingsley. Who is Snooty now? Who's the rich kid now?
He's the rich
kid. Your
ex-husband,
by the way. I'm sorry. Was your apartment? Was it 2-bedroom? Was it like 11,000 square feet compared to my 400 square foot one?
No, it was probably closer to like maybe 600 or 700 square feet. But we rented the second bedroom out. So my parents had the back bedroom and bathroom, and us kids had the living room. We just had mattresses on the floor, and while you were doing laps in your pool, I would sit in my tub and just splash back and forth to get a big wave as possible. I hope you had fun in that pool. Go hang out with all the Mace Kingsley kids and give us a bunch of shit for being poor Sea Org kids.
Right.
They did. The Delphi kids and Mace Kingsley kids were really mean to us.
Brighton Goss, one of Danny Masterson's closest friends, was a complete prick to me. First thing he said, "Hey, you know how I can tell your parents in the Sea Org? You don't wear nice clothes." I'm like, okay. All right.
Not wrong.
Thank you so much. I thought my Mayfair and Thrifty stuff was badass. My Payless shoes, come on, I had the Velcro and everything. I thought I was baller. I didn't know I was poor.
I used to buy the $3 pair of canvas shoes because they're $3.
Yeah.
And I forgot I had this picture of this. We took it one time. My friend took it. My friend's dad took some of us to Yosemite just for fun. And I was looking at some of the pictures, and there's this picture of the bottom of my shoe. I had it completely duct taped because I had holes in the bottom of my shoes. I was like, wow, we had to get a picture of this.
Yeah, it's one thing we don't really talk about a lot is I mean, we really did grow up in poverty. I don't people, they don't really understand how little money and physical things we actually had growing up. I mean, really little. Like I remember a couple of years for my birthday, I got pencils, a Trapper Keeper, and erasers. That was it. That
Well,
was
I was
it.
like
And then one time, yeah.
I was like a rich kid because Rosemary got child support from my father.
Yeah.
So she would buy me clothes. Like I had clothes. So, but if you thought about it, like I was like, I don't know. I had this problem in my head where I was like, I knew like my father was going to keep sending child support payments based off of their divorce agreement my whole life. And at a certain point, I knew that he would have to stop doing that when I was 18. And then I had no idea in my mind how I would ever be able to make enough money to not be poor after that. It was having like $500 being sent to for care, and then knowing that that's going to stop once you grow up. But when you grow up, if you really, us as SEER members, there was no way that we were going to have any money. Like, so
I can't believe you got that much
it was
money.
disorienting. Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, I bought a motorcycle with it.
Mike once went to a doctor's appointment and came back with a motorcycle. I'm like, which doctor did you go to? I want to go see him. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Still benefited from that.
But even with that, like the anxiety of knowing like, hey, when I'm actually like through school and working, money and actually enough to get by and have what I wanted would never be an option for me. That was a thought in my mind. So it was actually it was creating, like, it was nice to have clothes because Rosemary would buy me nice clothes. I had those things, but I knew they would come to an end at a certain point. That was coincident with me having to become a Sea Org member. It was a very strange thing. So here I am complaining about like knowing like, hey, I was having this extra money, but at the same time, I knew that it was going to not, there was no way to make money as adults. And that was the thing that we were growing into as Sea Org members. It's we knew we were going to be at a level of poverty and dependence our entire life. It sucked.
Well, so you have a different, like, that's interesting though, because you had the money, so you had to worry about that. Where for me, we never had that. So for me, it was just kind of going to always just be the same old. I remember when Yolanda for the first time ever, took us to thrift stores, and we were like, oh, holy shit, we can get clothes for like a quarter. Because back then you could actually get like a pair of jeans for like 50 cents and like a shirt for like a quarter. And so we could actually find some clothes. Now, sometimes they're very ill-fitting because a lot of times it seemed like it was adult clothes in there, but we could find some stuff to wear, like, and every now and then the cadets would get paid like 60 cents or $1 or something like that. And so we could go in there and get like a shirt or a pair of jeans or something like that, Yeah. But I never had this thought that, oh no, I'm going to actually run out of money for like, because we didn't have that. It was always just kind of, okay, well, now I'm duct taping my shoes. So how do I get $3 to get another pair? It's probably not going to happen for a while.
Yeah, it is interesting. It really is interesting because the money significance never really hit me. It was the material thing. Like, so when I was 19, 20, I was like, why does Dave have a motorcycle and a car? And I was like, well, why can't I have that? But I didn't know how much a car cost or a motorcycle cost. None of these things really registered. But when I was a kid, and my dad has a wonderful family, and two of my favorite aunts, Penny and Prue, we would go to their house for Christmas, and my aunt Penny had this poverty sucks framed picture of some guy sitting on a Rolls Royce, and I remember the first time I remember going to Barbara, going, Mom, I don't understand. Poverty sucks. What does that mean? What's poverty? And she had to explain it to me. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, that's what we have.
Yes.
That's what we have. Oh, I get it. But still,
you didn't realize you were a poor.
No, I did not. But what's funny is even after that, I still didn't go, oh, where could I get more money? I so much enjoyed going to my relatives for Thanksgiving and for Christmas because they had all these things. I had my own room to sleep in. So I was like, okay, well, when that comes along, but that's part of the cult. I didn't know there was better. So I accepted what I had.
I think that's actually why they took us out of public schools, though, because a lot of us were seeing kids have things that we didn't have.
Interesting.
Like, because I remember one time all the kids had trapper keepers, right? And we were just using the school issued little manila kind of envelopes or folders. And I remember going home to my parents one time. I'm like, well, how come I don't have a trapper keeper? Everyone puts all their schoolwork in there. How come I don't get that? And then then I kept seeing it, for years, and it bugged me so much. I finally bugged them until they got me one for like Christmas or something. But for other kids, it was just a matter of whatever. And every year as we go back to school in September, you see all the kids would talk about having gone back to school shopping. And I'm like wearing the same duds from probably the past 3 years. And, so it then was like with my mom, like, well, how come we don't do back to school shopping? Everyone else does it, and I think we were starting to develop these questions. And I think that was one of the reasons that they took us out. I mean, they told us it was because the psychiatric infiltration, and they said
I remember that from Carpenter.
Ritalin. Yeah. And they said that the teachers or the nurses were putting kids on Ritalin as if they have the authority to do that without. Anyways, whatever.
We were too young.
Kids. We didn't get it.
I have kids. Schools can't put your kid on anything. Like absolutely, positively not. Like in order for your kid to get all they can maybe give them is if they are sick with a fever and they call you and they say, hey, can I give your kid some Motrin or Tylenol? But they'll really just tell you, come get your sick kid. Like they are unable to just drug kids in schools. That was a total line of crap that was fed to us. It does not happen. There's absolutely no way in hell. Now, do kids
and
then
it scared
have to
us.
go? Now there is probably an issue in that children are, there are programs in order to get them on Ritalin or different things. Where I have a cousin, Jen, similar to your cousin, that I want to start doing talks with. She is a counselor and she actually focuses on kids. And what she'll do sometimes, and I want to talk to her about this, the different stuff that we have. But I asked her about this. I'm like, hey, is there an issue with kids that get onto medications and it messes them up? And she's like, there is an issue sometimes, but those are prescribed by doctors. A lot of times there is a kid with problems. He's put on medication, and sometimes as she's doing these interventions, she will get them off of the medication. If it's incorrect, she'll look at it and say, okay, does this person need to be on this? Is the medication causing the problem? But not all kids are being medicated. I'll tell you, like with my 3 kids, none of them take medication, and none of their friends that I know of have to take medication. Now, there are some kids in school that are just completely flipped out of their mind and they have to be on something. And is there the potential for abuse? Yes, big pharma is a problem. Is it like they're infiltrating and they're taking over all of our kids like Scientology and give us all your money and join the cult? No, it's not quite like that. Not in the least. So there is a depth of conversation there, and I'm interested to have that with Jen because she is an actual psychologist that deals with kid problems, kids that are like, in the system are struggling in school, and I want to talk to her about what she does, and then also compare our childhood and what we went through so that I can get her opinion about it, because she was actually, because she is a psychologist, she was always being something that would come up as Rosemary's Why on a PTS source, because Jen is a child psychologist that works with underprivileged children, and she's a psych, and she's a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. Even if she was, like, it's so ridiculous. Anyway, that's going to be interesting when I can actually get to it.
Ridiculous.
It's
so ridiculous. It's like they need a scapegoat for any time something isn't going right. So they're going to pick the one that would be the most obvious based on things Ron had said in the past or whatever, and go there. Meanwhile, this fat guy with bad teeth is just butthurt that the American Psychiatric, institution didn't like his crappy book. Like, and there's a problem now. Anyway. Let's say, like, who's petty now? Like, goodness.
There's a whole cult built on being petty. Anyway.
No, it's fast. It's interesting to look back at everything we went through and experience from different set of eyes and different experiences. I don't know. It's sometimes you guys ever get the feeling it's dreamlike. Like when you think back to all you've been through, you almost go, was that just a nightmare I woke up from when I left? Was that you know, like that I just missed the first 30 years of my life, and that was all made up because it's so absurd. They really just need to do a TV show based on it, because it's, you know, I think it would make, what's that big TV show about the British guy with the stalker?
Oh, Baby Reindeer.
Baby Reindeer. I think
I haven't watched that.
Fucked me up.
SBTV.
Excuse my language, man. I was like,
Oh, that's brutal. I think these stories, if done correctly by a good writer, it would just be that and more, because it's so crazy. But every once in a while, I mean, I've stopped having them now, but as you know, with most people, there was the nightmare, not dream, where you went back.
You're back.
And somehow you're like, I decided to go back because I thought it was for the good, and you went back, and now you're standing in a morning muster. And you're realizing that your rest of your day you don't have time off, and you're going to go home at 11, and then you wake up and you're like, whoa, no, that didn't happen. Wait, I'm here. I've got my normal job. I've got time off. I'm being paid. Well, it's a weird experience to have. It really,
for me, those
really
dreams. Sometimes I have those dreams, but I'm there with my family. I'm there with my wife and kids. Oh, and it's terrifying. And when I wake up, the feeling that I'm not there is like I'm actually even though the dream is horrible, waking up and realizing that I'm not there is the best feeling in the world. It's like, oh my God, it was just a dream.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For a long time, I had Dave dreams, like where I would have interaction dreams with Dave Miscavige, because I worked under him for a while, and then he was such a tyrant when we were up at Int. He was the only one that I would have dreams about specifically as a named entity. And that I refer to him as Dave Dreams, but every once in a while I'll still have one, but he's not the subject of the dreams anymore. It's just being back in that situation.
That's good. I'm not going to really discuss who I dreamt about at the base. That's it behind the scenes. there was a couple of people that would do your end of session examiner type things that would make my needle float from time to time. But
which needle?
oh, but there, we forgot that. Okay,
little one,
separate from auditing, separate from sec checking. The weekly meter checks were the bane of my existence. When we were at staff meeting, and they would like, there was some urgent thing or flap happening, and they would say, guy, and they wouldn't announce, go to HO for your after sec, your meter checks. I would be so happy. I'd be like, oh, thank God, we don't have to do this. I hated those.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know what that is, every week in Scientology organization and C organization, on a Friday or a Saturday, depending on your schedule, they would get all the staff members to line up. You would have to stand in line, and then one by one, you would go into a room with an ethics officer or an auditor or a sec checker and just hold the cans. And it was basically to see if you had done anything bad that week. The person doesn't say anything, and you just sit there. And it's basically a crapshoot. Is it going to read that I did something, or is it not?
So
I tried to,
and all they do is they just look at the needle.
Reaction or even looks bad gets made to write reviews.
Yeah.
See, and this is the thing we need to do. We need to do a whole conversation just with regard to the e-meter, because I manufactured those things for a while and I understand how they work. But I've also done, because I did that, I've done a lot more research in terms of what, like, was the e-meter, because it was made by this Matheson guy, and then Hubbard then kind of stole it all and kind of made that his thing. That e-meter is the one thing that kind of gives Scientology its credit, makes it somewhat credible for the people that believe, because you just have to believe what this meter does. And what it is, it's a thing called a galvanometer. They've been in existence for like 100 years. But what it does, you're holding on to this thing, and it puts a small electrical current through your body, and it is reacting to physiological reaction. So it is reacting, and then in Scientology, they've decided, well, if these certain reactions happen, it means something is true, or you'll follow it up, and like as they're doing this whole process. So it's under the assumption, it all goes back to what Hubbard says is 100% true. You can't go against it. You can't challenge anything. You can't disagree with it. So they've agreed to agree with what Hubbard says. And then these reactions that occur, they then say, oh, it's because of X, Y, and Z. And no one has any critical thinking with respect to any of it. So if you really get down to what this thing is, and these galvanometers exist, and they don't use them as much in psychotherapy anymore, but they've been in existence forever. That's why they had the idea to even start using the thing but even psychologists will use it on occasion if they know how to use one in order to find areas that a person has just a reaction to. And that's all that it is. It doesn't tell you what the reaction means. And so but in Scientology, we know what these things mean, and it's just simply not true. And like Jenny, like all of us have been in a situation where we're being interrogated and messed with, or you're being it's the thought police in 1984 where they're looking into your mind to get your bad thoughts, and your crimes that are just thought crimes. And that is what Scientology is based off of. But the thing that all the Scientologists, they say, well, you have to agree with what the e-meter says. And that's the first lie, that if you take it apart and you realize this is total bullshit, you realize the rest just falls apart.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
Yeah,
when
I'd be
that's
curious
what
when you do that. I want to definitely tune in, because I have so many questions about that, about the e-meter. Like so many things about it I don't get.
Right. Jenny, that's when I left. That was one of the final straws. I was like, I'd been being interrogated for 2 or 3 weeks. I was like, guys, I'm out of stuff. I mean, unless you were going past life, I'm done. And so I all of a sudden, in the middle of an interrogation from Chris Geider, I decided just to make up a story. I made up a complete fabricated story about having an affair with a girl up in CMU, Manu Del Francia. You may remember her.
Manu, yeah.
And
she would make your needle float, Sterling.
Did make my needle float. And so when I finished the story, he's like, "Okay, I got all that. Is that everything?" And I looked at Chris Geider. I said, "Did that read on the meter?" He goes, "Yes, I did." I said, "Then you're a fucking moron." Because I just completely made the entire story up. And right at that point, I was like, okay, well, I'm done with that. That doesn't work, clearly. For whatever reason, I was so done with it at that point, I decided to test it. And it did not work, because he thought I was telling the truth.
It did. So it's not that it didn't work. It did work. So it's not working the way they're saying it's working. Right. So it is reacting to emotional change. So when you go in there and you're like worried that this person's looking in your mind, you're giving it that power. You're like, oh, I'm reacting to this whole thing. If you're kind of indifferent and you don't give a shit, or like Jenny, you think, what's your thing, Jenny? You think about ice cream, like the shitty.
When I was little, yeah, because I mean, we got made to write OWs all the time, and when somebody's giving you the look and you're trying to pass your OW meter check, and they're like, and you're 6, you're like, so yeah, you think of ice cream. And when the guy told me to do that, it worked. And so I just did it from then on.
And then Sterling would think of Manu up in CMU.
Actually, no, my trick was baseball. My trick was baseball, and everyone knew it. Like even people doing meter drills, when I was on course, they would come over and grab me from the practical half of the course room, and they'd be like, "If you guys need a needle to float, grab Sterling," because all I would do is sit down and think about baseball, and my needle would float every time. I was actually known for being not in a real sec check. I couldn't do that because obviously it's intense, it's nasty. They're coming at you. But in the fake world, in the drilling world, I could always make my needle float by thinking about Scientology, baseball, and it just worked. It was funny. I don't know. I was like, okay, there's my happy place.
It's funny though, because they can sit there asking you something totally disrelated, like, in this OW write-up, has anything been missed? And you're like thinking, ooh, strawberry and chocolate and da-da-da-da. Like, yeah, so clearly it's not
it is reacting to things, but them knowing what it's reacting to and having this whole thing, that's all just manipulation, and it's all just a way to waste time, to use up the time that they had people pay for, so they can get them to pay for more time. It's all it's a circular logic wheel to make money. And it's really what it goes down to. And as you can see, people that get out, they're like, this stuff kind of sucks. There's these ND Scientologists that, it's like, could Scientology processing make you feel better? It creates a euphoric state, I will say that. But in terms of therapy, it's like Deadpool style, like maximum effort. If you want to do something the absolute hardest way and get minimal results, use Scientology technology. And you maybe will get some shitty results that are very short-lived, and that's probably about all you're going to get out of it. Anyway,
I think
2 cents.
I was just thinking, like, listening to like all of our insanities and stuff, and I mean, obviously, I know myself. I know both of you, for years, and none of us are idiots. for lack of a better word. But like, I feel like sometimes the only reason we didn't snap out of it sooner and get out of it was because we were started so young and we had so much of this pounded in as the norm. And we were cut off from the existence as much as possible from like otherworldly type anything, information, things, etc. So that, you know, we didn't try to seek a different route, or even we weren't even very aware of that possibility. And so, and I think a lot of it does stem from, at least for me and Sterling, would be from starting in the daycare, and then all three of us at the cadet org, and you know, like just the things that we went through there. And like it's funny because people say I'm a very independent person, and I know I am, but I know that stems from those moments, because we would roam so much anywhere at any time. And half the time, maybe even 80% of the time, I don't think any of the adults knew, or not even they did not know where we were. I don't even think they realized we were gone because there were so many kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like when I showed back up, they were like, oh, where were you? It was, I mean, now granted, sometimes we hopped over the back wall so we wouldn't get seen, but still, it wasn't like, where were you this afternoon? Like,
No, there was kind of free roaming. You know, and that's something to delve into. It'd be interesting because, like, even after hearing your stories, Jenni, with Jorge and Mike, you guys did that great interview. I don't want to say I started remembering things, but I kind of did. I was like, oh, that's right. I forgot that I had been pulled out of the cadet org at a certain point, and it was interesting to hear Jorge's point of view on that, right? How he saw it. You know, because I didn't necessarily, maybe I guess I was a rebel at that, either way. And we have a couple of questions in here that one of them addresses that, about what did I think about public school compared to Scientology school. Guys, I got in fights at every school. It didn't matter. I had an issue.
He got in
with
fights at his
authority.
little league game this weekend. All right. It's no,
Hey,
I'm down.
real
Yeah,
quickly,
we should do a few questions.
I want to show you what a person doing a meter check looks like, just in case, because Jenni, you'd mentioned the stare at you thing. So, so let's see here. Let's see if I can pull it up. Oh, it says, no, I don't want to share that tab.
uh-oh, I'm scared. While we wait, look at this. My friend Kendra from Culture Shock podcast.
Okay, yeah, go. While I find this.
Live, laugh,
Oh,
and
cool.
leave a cult.
Oh, that's cool. I love that.
See if I can find this for you guys.
Isn't it funny? His hat looks like it's the F word, but in symbols, so that it's not like actually swearing.
Whose hat?
Yours.
It's supposed to be LA in Japanese, but we all know it could be something completely different, and we have no clue.
I'm pretty sure it says fried rice. Yeah, fried rice.
Probably
That's
says
what it
my
says.
needle flooded. Oh, who makes the mugs? Her name is Kendra. She's at the Culture Shock podcast and the Anti-Cult Club. Live, laugh, and leave a cult.
There you go.
Here we go. I got
Good
this
advice
one.
right there.
It's not the exact one I had, but but this will work. So this is kind of the look you got from the person doing the meter check. It was a solid. It's like you had to sit in front of that and go and start thinking about your whole week. Did I not do something? Did I do something right? Did I steal a coffee from the canteen? No, did I? It was like, oh my God, it was such a mind fuck. It was so I hated it. Oh,
Did I take a paperclip?
And I wanted to think of baseball, but you can't in that particular moment because, again, there's pressure on you. So
We got these meter checks in the cadet org, by the way.
they're horrible. They're horrible. Yeah.
Hey, were either of you there for any of our like epic food fights that we had?
I was there for a lot of things. I don't know about the epic food fight.
Oh,
You mean
food fights, plural. We had a few that like topped
the ATA?
everything. We had
So we would
both
eat-
ATA
there was the
and the
big
cadet
course room and the little
yeah.
course room, right? Yeah.
In the big course room, we had emptied out every single food pan and plus some all over the thing, throwing it at each other. I mean, there was chicken flying, there was corn flying, like
Because you remember
Ooh.
the epic scene from Animal House where it's like food fight. I think we did something like that. But anyways, yeah. Hey, what did we destroy the powdered eggs and milk?
Oh my God, powdered freaking milk. I
But
had a spider cooked up in my eggs once. That was kind
So
of
gross.
fascinating.
Someone
was totally disgusting.
early on in the chat asked in the thumbnail said, "God, what is Mike? Looks like he's a character from a movie." And right when I saw that, I was like, "Yes, no, this is exactly true. This is who Mike looks like from a movie." In case you're wondering, it is George Clooney from Men Who Stare at Goats.
Oh my God.
100%. Yes, that is what Mike looked like. And which,
Yeah,
hey,
so-
I get compared to Danny DeVito all the time, so that's actually a good comparison, I would say.
So yeah, that picture was we were at this place called Joint Readiness Training Center. You go there for like, a month at a time and do big training exercises. And that was our trailer where we were putting all of our planning and stuff. That was our planning room. But I had a funny story there. And then I'm probably going to have to bounce in a little bit because I need to go find the kids and it's probably time to interact with my family in a little bit. But you bring all the stuff that you want there. And other than that, you just eat like, military meals ready to eat. It gets kind of old kind of fast. But people would always bring all their smuggled in, like, soda if you wanted, or candy bars or whatever you want while you're there because you don't have any access to stores. It's sort of like when you're in a deployment situation. Well, one of the guys, the lieutenants, he loved Mountain Dew. So he brought in cases of Mountain Dew and he had them. But we have one of our crew members, he's one of these guys that spits. He dips, so he always has to spit something. So he had grabbed one of these Mountain Dew cans and he was filling it up with dip spit. And he left it. He came into our planning room to ask us some questions about how to get the aircraft together. And the only one that had these Mountain Dews was the lieutenant, who was our officer in charge then. Well, this guy accidentally left. His name was Stuart. Stuart Green. He left the dip spit can in the planning room by accident. Well, the lieutenant walks in and thinks it's his. And this thing has been like, and we're talking the hot Louisiana sun all day long, and it is at least half full of dip spit. And not only that, but he would do the wintergreen dip spit as well. So anyway, the lieutenant goes straight up and drinks half of this thing before he realizes what it is. The fact that he didn't try to kill this non-rated guy is a small miracle. But yeah, that's kind of like the kind of crap that happens on these training.
Oh my God.
You know what the picture reminded me of? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no. Okay, sorry. I thought you were done, Mike. But
yeah, I'm done.
Just think about this. It's a total Ron Burgundy face. I'm kind of a big deal.
That's true. That is true.
Like...
Hey, do you guys want to jump on some questions real quickly? We had a few.
Yeah,
let's
do it.
Since Mike is on his phone, Jenny is I don't know where Jenny is. At home.
Yeah, I'm in my basement.
Okay. I haven't been tagging these because we were really just having a conversation. So there's a few starred ones. To everyone that said, "Hey, we're so glad to see you guys together. Welcome back." To me, probably welcome back. Thank you so much. Blake Reed, Witness,
do you
everyone.
want me to go through and look for ones that say question and comment or something? Do you want me to do that?
Look for that. And then I also have starred a few. So we'll just get started with those ones. But if you do have any quick questions, just go and throw a question in front of it. I cannot promise you we're going to get to it, though. Here we go. Let's start with this one.
Oh, I can't do shit because I'm not. Oh, sorry for swearing again, guys. Sorry. I can't do nothing because I'm not whatever you call it, able to.
No, Sterling's running it. He's got the back office.
Do that. So, Block A Reed. So good to see you three again. Been looking forward to this one for a long time. Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And Block A Reed again. Mike's pick looks like every one of my dad's funny office photos during his career, who's also named Mike. They really should call it Micateri. Micateri.
Oh, that's funny.
I kind of pulled this one up in the middle, Blake Reed again. So Jenna bites and Jenny slugs. LOL, you guys make a formidable force. You guys actually would, you and Jenna. You guys could totally be a superhero, duo. Tampa, a girl. Sterling, do you love public school? It had to be a relief not being in all right school. Oh no. So this, I think I was referring to this earlier. No, actually, it was all bad for me, to be honest with you. I had trouble with every one of them. Though in public school, I wasn't bullied by wealthy Scientologists. I still got in fights and got kicked out. Your experience, Mike or Jenny?
For me, it was, I mean, I liked it. I was learning more, that's for sure. That's probably where my education level cut off until I got tutored. But, I did struggle a lot with, because you speak a different language in Scientology. So I would think I'm having normal conversations with people and I'm not. And so it would create conflict because we couldn't understand each other. And so, yeah, I got in some fights and I got, you know, put in the corner a lot, and I got made to write standards a lot, and I got sent to the principal's office a lot and suspended a few times and all that good stuff. But a lot of it, I think at the base of it was misunderstandings, just communicating.
And the last public school I got was when we were in Colorado before my mother took us to California to be in the Sea Org. So for me joining, I was already in a special needs education program because I was dyslexic, and being in the cadet organization did not help that at all. So really the 5th grade was the last formal education that I got. And I would say that the schooling that I got in Scientology did nothing to prepare me for real life. Everything that I've learned, I've had to almost learn on my own. So I've done okay, but it wasn't because of Scientology. I kind of feel like my public education stopped when we joined the Sea organization. And other than learning how to read, I really didn't get anything else out of it.
Yeah. And as we've spoken about, the education at the ranch was just shit. Was terrible. We didn't get to learn science. We didn't learn history. It was reading, writing, arithmetic. I hated math. I did not understand why they were forcing me to write cursive by hand, because I was never going to be an auditor. So that just left me with reading, which I did on my own. So I didn't need help with that. So anyways, we've talked about that terrible experience there.
That's wild. Mike, I just remembered one thing just before I forget it. I mean, it's this one memory I have of your mom from back in the day. And so you remember when CMU used to be on, it was like, I think the 2nd floor of the main building?
It was the 3rd floor. It was the 3rd floor. Yeah, like the wing that was closest to Catalina.
Yeah, Catalina. So we would go up there and do missions for the 800 unit and just to help around sending out promo and stuff. And your mom was there. She'd sit on a desk nearby where we were. She would sit outside, I guess, probably her boss's office, and was near. And I remember while we were doing stuffing promo and whatever, she had actually drawn a picture of 2 of the kids who were with us just while we were sitting on the floor stuffing stuff. And she did it. And when we got to leave, she gave it to them. And we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. She did really good drawings. They were like this basic kind of sketch or whatever. But I always remembered that. That was probably the only memory really I have.
I didn't even know she was a good artist until I got her out. And now she does art all the time. She's actually really good. So
it's the one thing I absolutely remember about her.
That's interesting.
That's cool. She was never an artist in Scientology. She was always just an executive secretary or a cleaner or something, or working in their organization. But she just is a natural artist. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's awesome. I love that. I love that. Amber Vanass. I love that last name. I hated when I was in the cadet org, and you would have your monthly and have cramps. They would give you CalMag, no Advil, or anything like that.
That sucks.
Yeah. No, the medical is really, really horrible, guys. It's terrible. I don't know. I don't know how they get away
I'm
with
like a world famous bone breaker. I never got to even take like ibuprofen, Tylenol, nothing.
All right.
I can imagine.
This is a personal question, Mike. So you're obviously optional to answer. Mike, did the DSR help you and your wife? Do you recommend it?
I think it's a good procedure. It has been quite helpful. It's helped Emily quite a bit. She has gotten a lot of benefit out of it. Basically, just imagine just turning the volume down on stress. That's kind of what it is. So I do think it's good. It's obviously people need to look into it with their medical professionals, see if that's something that makes sense for them. But I do think that it is something that people can benefit from, especially if they are constant triggered stress with they're getting constantly kind of re-stimulated, I guess, to use a Scientology term, or, triggered, to use a normal term, without the ability to sort of like be able to rationally control that. I think it would help people with that sort of problem. It won't help you with things like therapy. Like if you need therapy in order to change behaviors and your emotional state, and like, so if a person needs medication or they need therapy, this might just calm things down so that those other methodologies would actually be beneficial for them. And that's my layman's understanding of it and stuff. But I would say if you do have it available to you and you can look into it, and it makes sense for you and your medical provider, then it might be an option. So,
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. Rona Cooley, what is a trapper keeper? Oh my goodness. Ron, I don't know where you're from, or maybe you're just too young, but Jenny has been wanting to explain what a trapper keeper is this entire time. So I'm going to let her go with this one.
I did. Let me date myself. Not you. No, I would say probably, what was it, 80s, very early 90s. Yeah. It was a type of a folder. It was like thicker plastic covered kind of folder that had like Velcro shut, but inside it had like sleeves and like a pouch that you could put all your little like school supplies in, and then you could put your homework and different things in different like sections. It was just kind of a fancy little school.
And always had cool designs on the outside,
right? Yeah,
that
with something. Yeah.
So you can get designs or your favorite cartoons or whatever.
Something, yeah. You could
now been replaced.
If you were like Jenny and you had a lot of money and you had a pool at your place, or you didn't have matching trapper keeper.
Right, says the person who went to
replaced by tablets. Yeah,
very expensive.
All the kids in school.
Says the guy who went to private school.
Yeah, all the kids in school now just have iPads. So
yeah, right, exactly.
For real.
I know. I'm like, they're like, yeah, we get to use calculators and math. I'm like, well, you lazy little turd.
The SP chef. I've heard of this guy. I've heard him mentioned. I don't know who he is, but I do love the
Aaron
concept.
did an interview with him.
Oh, he did. Okay,
on Aaron's channel. Yeah.
Okay.
I think his last name Zuli. I think okay. Eric. I might have his first name wrong. Yeah, one of Aaron's recent interviews has been with him. It was an excellent interview.
Okay.
I highly recommend
Very
it.
Good interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
I'll check it out. I've answered this question already. SP Chef used to take off my shoe, just one shoe. Oh, put them in a blanket, so both, and then rub them. So then he'd rub his feet together.
Oh, rubbing the feet together. I heard someone else say that same thing.
Really?
You rub your feet together and it.
I mean, there's probably a couple things you can rub to get your needle to float, but if it's your feet, knock yourself out. Jenny, did you have
like the guy in Sons of Anarchy with the thumbs? That guy?
Anyway. Jenny, did you have something that you made your needle float, or you didn't have that trick?
The ice cream. She had the ice cream.
Yeah, like when I was 6. So when I got older, I would think about like vacations with my grandma. I would think of like some maybe fun time I had with some friends, just take my mind off of whatever and think about something I liked.
Yeah. How interesting that should have been the first indicator that you were in a cult. That you had to think outside of your location to get your needle to float. I mean, that's so obvious now, right? Mike, did you have a trick?
No, I don't really, nothing comes to mind other than just trying to think happy thoughts of whatever was going on. And I think that the happy thoughts were few and far between when we were at Gold. So, yeah.
It got harder and harder as I got older. Sometimes I would just have whatever. If I have to write OWs, I'll write OWs.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we've talked about it before, but just to note, like there was a period in the 90s, at least for Mike and I, Jenny, up at Gold, right after we left the ranch. Well, not for you, Mike, because actually I'm now. Okay, so Mike, you were at the ranch and you were going through your horrible experience of wanting to leave, but a little period in there when Mike Norton, Ottapa Willoughby, Epstein, all of us had gone to Gold, where it was kind of Friday night, we'd all order pizza, go watch movies in our dorms. It was kind of easy going, still not ideal, still not a real life, but it was easier. mid 90s after Lisa McPherson, when Dave went batshit crazy, there was no fun anymore. You could not do anything. So there was a time where it was a little looser, and it just got totalitarian horrible.
Got bad.
Yeah, 94, 95-ish, it pretty much like the same. Yeah, it was the same for us. Like Saturday nights, we could actually go off the base and go out to like a coffee shop or catch a movie or something like that. As long as we got up on time the next day and cleaned our rooms and stuff, no one pitched a fit. But then, everything clamped down, like no more going off base, no more doing any of that stuff. CSP time was like run like a Nazi, I don't even know what. Like, remember, we used to have to stand outside of our rooms at attention while they inspected and like all kinds of crap. And Liberty Days were getting canceled and blah.
You would literally get up like 30 seconds before so you can go to the muster. And I would sometimes go to the muster and then go back in and go back to sleep. But I'm not gonna. There's a couple other funny stories about that. We'll leave it for later. Thank you so much. Your hat says Dodgers in katakana, but it's pronounced more like Dojaz. That's kind of cool, actually. Thank you so much. Here we go. We're gonna get through them fast so we can get Mike back to his family.
I'm gonna start walking while we're chatting. So
it's actually really cool. I like the look. Caroline in Canada, comment. Love you guys, but even more when you're together. Thank you. I actually like Jenni and Mike more when we're together too.
Well, Jenni more than Sterling, but yeah.
She's easy to love. She's easy to love. Lydia Von Stretchclaw. Yes, please do subscribe to Jenni and Mike. I think it's Mike Brown 101.
Yeah.
And then obviously Jenni is Colton Atheist, which is kind of a cool name. I think I have to acknowledge one person before I go. Guys, I changed my background up a little bit. I don't know if you noticed that. But John, Jenni, I'm going to be doing some content with my sister Jenna very soon. So maybe we could do that. Maybe even Mike can come in on that. I have to ask her, so I am just throwing that out there.
Cool.
And also I will be back on with Reese very, very shortly too. So
love it.
Yeah. Guys, I hope everyone has a wonderful Sunday. Please have a good time. Do the things you love. Get out in nature. Go to the Hershey Park. Go hunting. Go to a baseball game. Do what you want. Do what you love. I'm going to hit you with my outro, and then we will see you next time. There's the thumbs up. Here we go.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?